For the inaugural address, it is my privilege to invite on stage a business leader with over 15 years of experience in building and managing businesses. She's a visionary with a passion to chart out memorable journeys for brands while leading her team with grit and courage. She joined LVMH, or Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy, as commercial director in 2019 and has moved on to becoming the managing director. She is also the vice president at the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry and is an active part of the board at the International Spirits and Wines Association of India. This address is a pre-opening keynote of sorts for this edition of Praxis. Please welcome Ipsita Das, Managing Director, Moët Hennessy, India, who will speak on future-proofing public relations, learnings from the world of luxury. Joining her on stage after her keynote address will be Noopur Sharma, Partner Director at PR Pundit. Ipsita, may we have you on stage?
First things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been. Oh, ooh, the way that things have been. Oh, ooh. Second thing, second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one at the sail, I'm the master of my sea. Oh, ooh, the master of my sea. Oh, ooh. I was broken from a young age, taking my soak into the masses, writing my poems for the few that look at me, took to me, shook at me, feeling me, singing from heartache, from the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the... Hey, you turn me up, believer, believer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Anubhuti, for that lovely introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today amongst you all. Well, I'm Ipsita Das, Managing Director of Moët Hennessy in India from the Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy Group. Well, as you would know, LVMH, Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy, is a French luxury conglomerate that houses 75 plus luxury brands. Dior, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany's, Bulgari, and a bunch of those brands that you saw on screen, Dom Perignon, Moët and Chandon, Hennessy, and the list goes on. Well, most people who don't know me tend to think that I have a background in luxury, either through education or through my work experience. And for those who know me, they generally ask me, Ipsita, how on earth did you land on this job? Well, both of them are correct in their thinking. In fact, 3 years back, when I was being headhunted for this role, my first reaction to the headhunter was, well, you know, I create products which are less than 5 rupee a kilometer. It's for mass mobility. And here you are, asking me to manage products and brands that are luxury. Are you sure? Well, the rest is history. While I'm still learning, what I know is luxury is about dreams, and it's about making dreams come true. While everyone has their own definition of luxury, let me give you mine. Luxury makes you feel special. Luxury makes and takes different contentions and values. Luxury has united people, divided them, and motivated people as well. It is considered alienating and unattainable for some, and an addictive drug for others. It makes people ecstatic and deliriously happy, and can make others depressed and cringe. But at the end of the day, luxury was and will always be known for its way to make people dream. Well, waking up from that dream, most of you might wonder, how is this even relevant to India? Well, when you talk about luxury, you talk about US, about Taiwan, about China, about Korea. It makes sense, but India, it's a developing country. And the scope of luxury seems abysmal. Well, then it's time to wake up from that dream. Let me give you a reality check with a few fun facts. As per many reports, India's luxury good market in 2022 will grow from 6 billion from 2021 to 8.5 billion in 2022. And that number will rise to a whopping 200 billion by 2030. But who is driving this growth? There are three segments. The growing upper middle class, as our population is no longer going to be tiered in the form of a pyramid, and it's going to be top heavy. And the growing young population. Millennials will actually represent 45% of the global luxury consumption by 2025. And the Gen Z would be responsible for 40% of global luxury consumption by 2035. Then comes the third group, the ever-expanding high net worth individuals in India. Well, as of a survey from earlier this year, India has 166 billionaires, which puts the country only third in the list after US and China. And the number of dollar millionaire households, well, you can't even guess. It's 450,000 households. Well, enough of numbers. I love numbers, and we'll come to it in a bit. But that's it for now. Now, what is it that is driving this? What is driving the luxury industry besides the higher spending power? Soaring aspirations in the hyper-connected metaverse, exposure, individualism, and the list goes on. Well, you get the drift. Luxury is here to stay, and it will continue to grow, and it will impact us in our everyday life. 300 new luxury brands are expected to set foot in India in the next 2 years, and it will be a crowded space. It will be extremely critical for brands and organizations to be future ready in that ecosystem. Luxury at this scale is no longer going to be niche anymore. And luxury will not be for the selective few anymore. So, in the evolving environment, one needs to be future ready, and that's what we are talking about today. But how? Let me encapsulate that with the power of the 5C. The first one, consumer centricity. Today, our products, wherever they are, whether it's in store, in digital experiences, our customer service, are all putting the consumer in the center. It's all about giving the greatest experience to the consumer. And rightfully so. Consumer is the king. Consumers expect more, and we have to fulfill whatever they expect. Consumer experience today dictates where people spend their money and develop loyalty towards. And companies obsess over it because consumer experience is the primary differentiator in the sea of sameness. Let me tie this up with an example that's close to home, and that's very close to my heart. Well, in this room, if I may ask, well, I do see a whiskey bar at the end, but how many whiskey drinkers are here in this room? Can you please raise your hands? Oh, I see Archana there. Hi, Archana. Okay, how many single malt drinkers are there in this house? Yeah. Well, when it comes to single malts, there are many out there, many Glens. Glencoe, Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie, you saw that, and probably a few more. And you know what is common across all of them, apart from the fact that they all start with Glen, is actually the consumers. The Glen drinkers are assumed to be snobs. because they drink it neat. They drink it at times just on the rocks, quite literally so at times, yeah. They would drink it with 3 drops of water. And if you have visited a few of those distilleries back in Scotland, they would use a dropper to put those 3 drops of water. And what makes it worse is they would actually look down upon the blended whiskey drinkers. Well, that's exactly where Glenmorangie brought in consumer centricity. Well, India is a whiskey drinking country, and with the raise of hands, we see that 81% of India drinks whiskey. However, the reality is a large part of that consumption is done either with a soda or mixed with water. While whiskey cocktails are picking up, one has not seen single malt play the cocktail game yet, till Glenmorangie X came in, a single malt which was launched earlier last year, which was made to mix. And this is what I call as consumer centricity. When you think about your product and how it is consumed from the consumer lens, you create a product as per the consumer need, as per the consumer habits, and not as per what you want to create. Moving to the next C, cultural sensitivity. Well, there are several examples that exist, and we have seen of brands that exist on either side of cultural sensitivity. And we all know what happened to them, or probably not. We know Jay-Z and Beyonce. Let me give you a little story. So back in the day, Jay-Z, the American rapper, had a very tough upbringing in the suburbs of New York, where the only 2 options that existed for kids in that community as they grew up was either to land in a hospital or land up in the jail. Jay-Z did not want that lifestyle. He wanted a way out. He wanted to excel. Through his drive and love for rap, he not only came out of that world that he always wanted to escape from, but turned out to be one of the world's most famous, successful rappers. As he celebrated his success came his love for champagne. Jay-Z helped widely popularize a particular French champagne brand called Cristal in 90s and early 2000s. And he actually used it in his videos and even name-dropped it in his songs. It was not a paid promotion, by the way. It was his pure love for champagne. It came from his heart. However, in 2006, something changed. An interview took place, and a journalist asked one of the office holders of the champagne brand Cristal, "Sir, does the association with African American nightlife hurt Cristal?" And the officer replied, "Yes, it's a problem. But what can we do? We can't forbid people from buying it." Wow. Well, obviously, Jay-Z was hurt. The brand he was promoting out of love and admiration was ashamed of him. Jay-Z decided to have his own champagne brand. He partnered with a family business who had the liquid, had a name, and that was the birth of Armand de Brignac. Look at that bottle. What does that remind you of? It's golden. It looks like a trophy. Given Jay-Z's journey, being successful and celebrating success really meant a lot to him. And the golden bottle was for those who wanted to celebrate and be proud of their success and showcase it in an unapologetic manner. So there you are. A brand was created, a creation that was triggered by cultural insensitivity, but a brand that had cultural sensitivity at its core. What else? Let's move to the third C. Creative agility, we heard that a while back as well. Well, when it comes to luxury, luxury brands have a very fine balance between tradition and modernity, between creativity and innovation and craftsmanship. A constant balance is required. Sometimes when brands become too traditional, you see an injection of innovation. Well, the new line, the new fashion shows, or a new product. And there would be times that brands become too modern and you hold back. And you see a re-injection of tradition. And you do injections. Comes out those artifacts from 50 years old or 500 years old. But however, this tension is extremely important. If a brand is too tradition heavy, it becomes dusty. And when a brand is too much on the innovation side, it does run the risk of being short-lived. So the balance is critical. However, to talk about tradition or innovation, in both you need creativity. Creativity doesn't and should not and will never be able to exist in a vacuum. It's not about what I want to do, like what I mentioned a while back, but it's about what the consumer needs. Creative ideas that do not resonate with the consumer are meaningless. Creativity needs to be linked to the objective of touching consumers, as many as possible, and then bringing those consumers on board the brand. The next one, collaboration mindset. There are many ways of being creative. Look back at the tradition, speak to your consumers, learn from your consumers, or just collaborate. Well, collaboration covers demand for newness in a much less risky manner. It gives brands the cool edge and the cool factor and strengthens brands' awareness as well as their willingness for consumers to purchase. Collaboration is actually increasingly in demand and turns out to be the most effective way of creating a purchasing incentive. An example you see on the screen is that of Hennessy's collaboration with NBA, which is dominated by Afro-American community and that have historically been the biggest consumer segment for Hennessy. But giving an example closer back home, just open your Instagram, see the reel, you will see all the Bollywood airport looks and look at what they are all wearing. It's Gucci and Adidas. Well, lastly, the courage to commit. In order to stay relevant, brands and organizations need to commit towards a future, for a better future. Champagnes have been around for many centuries now, 300, 400 years old. And demand is off the charts. Moët Hennessy took a step to make all vineyards in Champagne 100% herbicide free. That's a commitment to protect the soil for the future, for tomorrow, and that needs courage at a time when supplies are scarce. So no organization can actually anymore function in isolation, living in the present without thinking about the impact it makes in the future. So there you have the 5 C's that help us be future ready. You would say, Ipsita, you're going to talk about luxury. All that you're saying is true for any business in today's world. Luxury or non-luxury? And I would say, yes, you are right. So last weekend, I went to buy Rakhi with my 4-year-old son to a local shop. In case you are wondering why I didn't order it online, well, we all know after being locked in for 2 years, we look for every single opportunity to step out, even to buy Rakhi from a local shop. Well, in the shop, Rakhis pretty much covered everything, right? The front display window packed with Rakhis, dainty pearl ones, the Turkish evil eye ones, the Rudraksh, and DIY Rakhi sets are also there these days, it seems. They were all there. Well, the shopkeeper obviously tried to make friends with my 4-year-old son. He tried to make him feel at ease. He asked him what is his favorite color, what is his favorite cartoon, and for those who have kids at home or niece and nephews, you know that topic on cartoons can get anyone talking. Well, anyways, in a few minutes came out 3 boxes. A box full of Rakhis with Avengers, the second one with Paw Patrol, and the third one with Peppa Pig. Well, I didn't know where to hide. Well, what did the Rakhi shop guy do? He ticked consumer centricity. Cultural sensitivity was already clicked. Creative agility with so many different kinds of Rakhi, yes, it's clicked. And guess what? When I went for the billing counter, he gave us a combo offer with cupcakes. Collaboration clicked. Last, no surprises here. He even packed the Rakhi in a white paper envelope, not in a packet. Commitment to future clicked. Well, the local shopkeeper is running his business, had all the 5 C's in place. Then what is it that sets his business aside and apart from a luxury brand? Any guess? Any guess out there in the audience today? Yes? Any more guesses? Branding? Yes, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, accessibility, branding are 2 words I heard. Yes, they do set aside a luxury brand from the local kirana shop business. But there's one thing that they can't replicate. It's storytelling. All the 5 C's are great for making businesses grow and being future ready. But storytelling is what makes brands and organizations leave behind a legacy. We in Moët Hennessy say that our business is all about crafting experiences, not about selling bottles. And one cannot have an experience without a story. What differentiates a meal that you had in a quick service restaurant from a fine dining one, apart from the level of service and of course the bill? Well, I would say it's the experience. When you have a chef in a restaurant come up to you and explain the dish, it tastes different from what it would have without the story behind the dish. When we walk into an art gallery and look at art and make our own stories around it, obviously, well, it's not the same as someone coming in and explaining the art to us and the story behind it. In today's Epicurean world, storytelling elevates our sensations and creates a memory. Stories anchor what we taste, what we see, what we sense. And that's the most important part of luxury. Stories help us remember things, and we remember experiences because of the stories that are associated with them. And that's how luxury brands conquer consumers and make them lifelong fans of their brands. And it's not just any story. It needs to be a relevant one, tied up with all the 5 C's, said at the right time, at the right place, to the right audience. What you see on the screen is a Louis Vuitton trunk. So Louis Vuitton has a museum in France, and in that museum it houses artifacts that have been used and carried by the who's who's of the past. So obviously the house of Vuitton have had served explorers, princes, adventurers, and artists of all kinds, and that ranged from the Maharaja of Baroda to Ernest Hemingway to Sharon Stone, and the museum houses all their stories and artifacts. There was one such trunk in the LV Museum that was owned by a famous Indian Maharaja, and that they kept it there, and it was obviously priceless. But instead, after many, many, many decades, what they chose to do was send it to India, to be placed in the LV store in Delhi in India. Why? It's simple. Because it's relevant here. A story in India will tell the story, the LV story or the trunk story in India will tell the story how Indian royalty was already an LV client decades ago. And that's more relevant to India than in France. And ever wondered who is best placed to tell that story? Well, this one is not a very difficult one to guess. It's the room full of you today. This is where the role of PR becomes more and more prominent today. We all have stories and we all create new stories, but the stories need to be told. PR is ever evolving and it will continue to evolve. PR has the power to transform any business, any brand, and humanize it. PR has the power to make any story cool, with a character, with an obstacle, with an outcome, and a landing. All the four essential parts to any story. Well, all the stories that I have been saying in the last 15 minutes, I wouldn't have known about them if they were not PR'd by someone. In the world of luxury, which is expanding in depth and width, PR is the key pillar of reach to consumers. Luxury is not just in megacities anymore. It's in tier 1, it's in tier 2 cities, and obviously we all know the huge disposable incomes that exist there. And they're showcasing huge, strong pulls of luxury. And PR is the only scalable way to reach out and tell the story effectively. Just like consumers, organizations, and brands, PR is also in a very, very dynamic space. And who knows that better than you all? And is evolving with the changing ecosystem. So how do we future-proof PR? Well, the 5 C's are relevant here too, and there is more to it. A slight disclaimer. When I was trying to make this slide, I thought what will make the best PR slide? And this is what I came up with. Sorry for this, I couldn't find a better slide for PR folks. You guys will have to help me change that for some other session. But anyways, future-proofing PR. In order to future-proof PR, the first step is to understand and acknowledge the power that PR has to transform the business today. Yesterday, PR was about crisis management. Today, PR is about expanding brand presence. Tomorrow, PR will be in the center of brand creation. So first step towards future-proofing PR for any organization is to expand the scope of it and letting it contribute to its fullest capacity and capability. To all leaders out here, we all have to acknowledge the need for PR. Second, PR is obviously fast evolving, like I said. Today it is Instagram, tomorrow it will be metaverse. Who knows what will it be day after? Creative agility will play a huge role in the PR ecosystem. Innovation will not just be an KPI for a product, service, or a brand. It will be a PR KPI as well, in order to stay ahead of the game. So to all PR folks all here, push the boundaries of PR proactively and innovate. Lastly, let's not overshadow PR. Most organizations today, because of either scale or by design, have PR as a subset of marketing. Well, I believe PR deserves to have an independent say on business decisions being made. And it needs to happen soon. Well, we have all gone through a stage, and we heard that an hour back in the last few years, where hiring was a nightmare. Besides measuring business metrics, we were also measuring recruitment metrics, including offer dropouts. And I had my HR leader walk up to me and said, Ipsita, we need to do PR and tell the story how great Moët Hennessy is to work in. So yes, PR is everywhere. It's not just about marketing. So, moral of the story, let's give PR a seat on the table. Before I end, I have to share this with you. Why am I invited here in Praxis? It was actually the first question that came to my mind when I was approached for this talk about a month and a half back. And I have to admit, I did wonder, why me? Why not someone from the PR world? But needless to say, I soon did realize that PR is not for the PR and the comms community. PR is not for the marketing community. It is not a support function to any business. PR is a key pillar of any business today, and business leaders need to own it. PR is that lifeline that will not just tell the stories and connect brands to the consumers, but it's that lifeline that will put brands in the history books for generations to read and make them legacy brands. Thank you so much.
Exciting times for the luxury and lifestyle brand who was building a dominant relativity in terms of becoming the absolute torchbearers of cultural marketing today, and status quo is being questioned in this domain, and I can be proud of that. Especially for the established legacy brands, it is even more so because they are trying to find a fine balance between brand value, of course, matching up with the very, very heavy digitalized landscape, and obviously going to the multicultural millennials. You are spearheading brands which are almost 3 centuries old and have enviable legacies. And we couldn't have asked for anyone better today to demystify luxury for us. That brings me to the first question, taking on from your first slide. New terms qualifying luxury regularly appear, such as premium, ultra premium, my personal favorite, hyperlux. You mentioned Adidas and Gucci there. Today, luxury is everywhere. But if everything is luxury, then the term itself needs to have a new meaning. In that context, how are you satiating the demand of niche experiences that your audience is seeking today?
Wow, Noopur, firstly, thank you for that question, and it's a loaded one. It's my daily job to do that. Well, Moët Hennessy is all about crafting experiences, and it is not just our mantra, but it is what we take pride in. There's no two ways, Noopur, today that the definition of luxury has changed and is constantly changing. It's expanded now. It's a lot more approachable, it's a lot more accessible, and it's a lot more democratized. And like I mentioned a while back, it's changing. It's not going to be the same probably 10 years hence. However, it will always continue to make people feel special through those niche experiences. Well, I was talking about single malls. Yesterday, single malls were a luxury. Today, everyone has it. You know what is luxury today? A 19 million euro worth of an Ardbeg cask, just one cask of 19 million euro sold to an Asian consumer. And I think this is something that will change over a period of time. Yes, we are forced to re-innovate. We are forced to create products which never existed. We are pushed to create those niche experiences and bringing them close to home. Just to give you one other example, like if you go to the Sharma winery in Nashik in India, and if you spend a day there, you wouldn't know if you are in Napa or Bordeaux. And that's what we are doing. We are bringing in luxury experiences closer home, and that was our decision to bring a Sharma winery in India for the Indians.
that also means that you're bringing culture and consumer centricity to the core together. I was very interested by your views on cultural sensitivity. It is a sweet spot between where the brand stands, where the consumer ecosystem is, and where the culture dominates. How are we shaping the culture marketing outreach within your industry? Are we really disrupting the norm or sort of challenging the status quo here?
Absolutely. Well, in this, again, ever-evolving world, luxury is all about the consumer today who's super global, right? And with that consumer, you need to keep in mind very distinct cultural norms. So no luxury brand can actually be there without reshaping and adopting towards the change in the cultural norms. I'm sure some of you would have seen a couple of years back, Bulgari launched a Mangal Sutra in India. Well, who thought, what was the forte of Indian jewelers of creating Mangal Sutra? You'll have an European brand creating Mangal Sutra for Indians in India. And that's not it, they didn't stop there. Guess who they put on the face to promote it? Priyanka Chopra. And that's what I call is cultural marketing getting completely disrupted, completely innovated, re-innovated rather, and I think that's here to stay. So, however, I think there's a paradox there. There's one where we are bringing in global brands close to home, but also what global brands are doing is they are exposing consumers to things that they had never been exposed to. So it's a two-way street.
With experience also comes the power of campaigns. And we all know that creating campaigns that relatively relate to the audiences today can be more than complicated. And we know that in our domain as well. After all, it is a dark market specific to your industry, but consumers at large are also changing. And I think what we would really like to know today is what are the trends that you foresee as the driving force to earn conversations and brand advocacy?
You mean the wines and spirits part in India?
Yes.
Yeah.
One aspect is yours, but the second is the consumer at large. Because
Yeah.
like you mentioned.
Yeah. So I think, Noopur, very interesting one because we ourselves are learning in this process, right? For those who don't know, so wines and spirits in India is a dark market. Sorry, I'm speaking to PR folks, so you all know this. So yeah, it's a dark market. So the only channel we get to use is pretty much digital with very, very stringent guardrails. However, I think there are a few trends that have been seen globally for us. I think first is being authentic. I think brands need to walk the talk. They need to be superbly truthful for consumers to trust them. I think the second one, and something that I had mentioned during the talk as well, is sustainability. It's a big focus, not just for organizations, but consumers also believe in it and they look forward to it. And I would not necessarily call that a trend because trends generally seem to be short-lived, but sustainability is here to stay. And the third one would be unique experiences. They are really, really sought after, like in this very crowded space. Everyone has the same products, everyone's got the same exposure, but what really sets them aside are experiences that not everyone has access to. And those unique experiences have to be crafted and curated for the people they are made for. You cannot have one experience for a Gen Z and the same one for a Gen X and the same one for a boomer. And not the same one for a person in Delhi and a person in Indore, right? So I think curating those experiences is becoming a trend and sought after. And last but not the least, I think the fun factor. Everybody wants to have fun. Everybody wants to be highly, highly engaged. And yeah, I think, Noopur, these are the few things that have been the trend in the industry in general.
Okay. But my takeaway is the creative agility, and I think that will play a powerful role in the ecosystem of PR. That brings us to the question of KPI. What, according to you, are the parameters for a brand to know that the PR is on the right track? A measurement metrics that sets the record straight on badge value, earning share of heart, share of mind, and of course, share of wallet.
Well, I know I said a lot about storytelling today, but it cannot live in a silo world. Data is as important today as is the story. There's no two ways about it. If we want that seat in that boardroom, we have to add data to it. And yes, PR also is in that realm where obviously in today's day there's a lot more analytics that is being, that we all have access to, which makes decision making so much more easier and I think more powerful. So obviously you have the analytics around, if you look at in the social media, traffic, conversion, brand mentions, sentiments, and so on. But just to give an example, in our world of Moët Hennessy, we have a brand health tracker that we use every year to see how our brands are doing, where our consumers are in the funnel. Are they in the awareness stage? Are they in the consideration stage? Are they in the purchase stage? And obviously there are many more that exist in the social media ecosystem that everyone has, or most companies have access to. And I think what's critical today is to adapt them, adopt them, and make the fullest use of the data that is available there when it comes to PR. Yeah.
Trash and hash data. I think the takeaway here is that communication continues to be at the epicenter because luxury is expanding, and as we saw, what's going to happen in the next 2 years, and we're ready for it. And of course, distinctive storytelling will lead the way. I've got all my questions in place, but I would like you to summarize your 3 tenets of future-proofing PR in just 3 words.
So future-proofing PR, beyond what I mentioned a little while back, I think first, expansion of skills. To stay abreast with the continued innovation that's coming up, not just on the organization side, but even with the consumers. Second, measure your impact. Numbers speak much louder than words. And third, I would say curate and personalize. PR needs to create those stories because there is no one size fitting all in today's date.
Thank you, Ipsita. I think
Thank
that's
you,
all from us,
Noopur.
Anubhuti. Thank you.
Thank you, Noopur. Thank you. You were all amazing.